it's a stranger lurking from afar and making sure you know it, or someone who is more familiar with your life and using it to their advantage. This list is full of some of the most eerie text messages with backstories that will send a shiver down your spine.
Get ready to block some numbers and mute some messages, because you definitely won't want any of these people getting your contact information as we dive into the top 10 text messages with disturbing backstories.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have your real name. This story comes from the Reddit user Bobby Doru, and 4 years ago they wrote, quote, "Last year I was idly wasting away my afternoon when I got a message notification on Facebook. I opened it up and it was a 20-year-old guy saying, quote, 'Are you my full legal name?' No one really knows my full legal name, so I figured this kid knew me. I opened up his page and he lives halfway across the states from me. We have no mutual friends, and as far as I can tell, we would have had no way to ever meet." There's already a lot of red flags here, but our Reddit friend continues on this conversation with this random stranger and decides to respond by saying yes, that they did have their full name correctly. After this, the next message the stranger replies with just read, "I am going to effing kill you," with a smiley face at the end. Alrighty then, definitely not the casual afternoon of scrolling through the internet that anyone was expecting. The Reddit user finishes off their post by saying, quote, "I am 27 years old and not terribly paranoid, but this shook me to my very core. As far as I know, I still have him blocked on Messenger." Yeah, definitely for the best.
Next up at number 9 is someone that was catfished. Cokeman posted to Reddit sharing a story about an online exchange gone horribly wrong. They said, "About 5 months ago, I found out a guy was pretending to be a girl in the Toronto meetup sub. We traded insults, and he ended the conversation with a warning about how technologically well off he was. The catfish then went off, threatening to track them down and get their personal info. At first, Cokeman thought nothing of the threat and went on with their life. But a few days later, at a bar with some friends, they noticed that they'd gotten a random voicemail. There had been no ring, no caller ID, no number, nothing. When they went to listen to the message, they were absolutely panicked to hear that it was a recording of a conversation they had literally just had with their friends at the bar. So either this creep hacked into the phone and accessed the mic, or was just stalking Cokeman and their friends. The Reddit user was so creeped out that they immediately did a factory reset on their phone to erase anything that the creep could get their hacking hands on. Thankfully, they never received any more elusive messages, but it definitely scared them off the meetup sub for good.
In our number 8 spot today, we have the shirt. This story comes from someone who goes by the Reddit username EnderPlays286, and they start off by explaining that they run a business that sells cards for gifts. Basically, they get contacted by people who want a card, they make the card, they plan to meet up, exchange card for payment, voila, everyone's happy. That was until this one very peculiar encounter with a customer. Basically, the customer contacts them, he wants a card for his friend's birthday. No problem, card gets made, they meet up, the customer pays, they go their separate ways. Nothing happens until 1 week later. That's when this person checks their phone and they suddenly have a text message from this customer. They think it might be like a thank you or some kind of a review, but instead the message reads, "I like your shirt." Okay, strange. They take notice that they are wearing one of their favorite shirts, one that has the Transformers logo on it. They think the text is weird, but reply thanks, and put their phone down. Almost immediately they get a reply again from the customer. This time the message reads, "I like Transformers too." They finish off their post by saying, "I immediately got paranoid and moved away from where I was sitting. I then replied with a warning that I will call the police on him, and that I had his number, and that I still remembered what he looked like. He backed off after that. My business is still running, but I'm much more careful now."
Next up at number 7 is a Russian spy. This one comes from Reddit user Ruler of Cakes, and they posted about a creepy exchange they had with someone who claims to have known them. The user started off by explaining that they live in South Korea, and one day they received a strange text from a Korean phone totally out of the blue. What was weird was that the message was in Russian. Reddit user explained they didn't know anyone who was Russian, and there was nothing that they had ever done in their life that could have led to any communication with someone from Russia. But with the help of Google Translate, they messaged back back in Russian saying that they had the wrong number, but this person insisted. The unknown number kept saying they needed to meet up at a certain place alone and that they knew each other, but no matter what, the Russian refused to reveal their identity. Ugh. Ruler of Cakes admitted they started to feel a little panicked, I mean, who wouldn't, and so they began replying in English and Korean, to which the secret Russian messenger completely freaked out on them and then ghosted them. With a sigh of relief, they assumed it was just some weird prank and that it was all over, but a few weeks later, the same thing happened again. This time the message said, "You do not have to be afraid, I just want to talk." Then, just when Reddit user was about to reply, the secret texter sent an apology and the conversation ended just like that. But who was it really? Some secret spy? A stalker? Someone playing a weird prank? I guess we'll never know.
In our number 6 spot today, we have Remember Me. This creepy text story was posted to Reddit by the user Snickerdoodledoo 4 years ago, and they started off by explaining that it wasn't what the message contained that freaked them out in this instance, but instead it was the details surrounding it. They write, quote, "I got a friend request and a message on Facebook from some dude with a car as his profile pic. The message was just something like, 'Hey, remember me?' I didn't, and I had to be like, 'Who are you?' Okay, if I had $1 for every time I received a random friend request from someone who had a car as their profile picture, I'd be rich. It's not the most intimidating thing, but it's definitely strange to get a message from some anonymous stranger. Here's where things really take a turn, however. They continue on to tell us that they found out who was on the other end of this Facebook Messenger chat. They wrote, quote, "It turned out it was the dude from a Chinese restaurant near my house. He remembered my name from my debit card and searched me out." How horrifying, and also possibly illegal? In the end, it appears as though everyone was safe, and although very creepy, the intention here wasn't to do any evil. Hopefully that person learned a very valuable lesson throughout this entire ordeal.
Next up at number 5 is a sore loser. This next story comes from Reddit user Zeta Beatrice about a time they were playing a game on Steam in high school. As is pretty normal, they didn't know who they were playing with, but at the beginning things were going really well. The teammate was really nice, they were laughing, cracking jokes, and just, overall having a good chat. But once they started to lose, it was like some switch went off in this guy's head and he just started losing it. The Reddit user told the teammate to calm down, that it was just a game, and to quit being so toxic. But this only made the teammate madder. He says, "I will kill you in real life." Although a little creeped out, they brushed it off. It was just some weirdo trying to piss them off, so they logged off the game and went to go do something else. But not long after, they noticed they had a friend request from the guy they'd just been playing with. Assuming they were wanting to send something snarky or dumb, the Reddit user accepted the friend request for a laugh, but instead all they received was a message containing their current living address, their dad's full name, and their phone number, none of which had been made public online. Thankfully, nothing ever came from the threat, but the poor teen was scared for weeks that someone was plotting to kill them over a game.
In our number 4 spot today, we have Under Your Bed. Summer Lovelay from Reddit posted a story about how growing up, the pastor at their church always creeped them and their sister out. Terrible start to that story already. While everyone else just thought this man was the nicest and sweetest person, they both just saw straight through the act and knew something more was going on. Summerlake continues on, quote, "One day he texted me out of the blue saying my mom told him I needed a new dryer. He told me he had one for me and was on his way to bring it by. I personally never gave him my address but figured maybe my mom gave it to him. A few hours after he dropped off the dryer and left, he texted me again asking if I had the chance to use the dryer. Did it work okay, etc. I told him it worked great and thanked him. To which he replied, 'Don't forget to check under your bed tonight.' I asked why, and he said, 'To make sure I'm not under there.'" Like, what? I can't imagine getting this text from anyone, but definitely not the pastor at my church. That's insane. Leigh was smart and told her boyfriend and also made sure to block the number, and then after this, she told her mom, who then told the deacon at the church. Next thing everyone knows, the pastor and his family suddenly picked up and moved out of state. Really a little all peculiar, if you ask me. I don't know. It's a weird coincidence.
Coming in at number 3 is Across the Street. This one comes from Reddit user James_short. 4 years ago, they posted about a message they received one night from a random number. The first message said, quote, "How's your show?" Now, all by itself, that wasn't so creepy. Although the user was watching TV at the time, they just assumed it was a text sent to the wrong number, so they didn't reply and went on with their night. But just 10 minutes later, it was made clear that the first text was no mistake. The random number sent another text saying, quote, "Please don't ignore me. Ignoring me makes me very angry." This obviously sent the Reddit user into a bit of an anxiety spiral, as they weren't sure if someone was just being a jerk and messing with them, or if they were actually being watched. Then another text appears saying, quote, "I'll always be watching, look outside." Honestly, that would have sent me over the edge, but it only got creepier. The user says that immediately after the third text was sent, a light came on across the street from their house. They looked over and it was coming from an upstairs window of the house across from them. And standing in that window, staring at them, was a vague silhouette of someone waving. They called the police and thankfully authorities were there shortly. Turns out the guy didn't even live there and had broken in. They filed a restraining order and they've thankfully never heard from him since.
In our number 2 spot today, we have the bus ride. Real Christinana posted on Reddit about their creepy text exchange that happened when they were younger and they were on a bus. Despite it being a little bit more of a chilly morning, they were wearing a sport uniform on this bus, and this is when they suddenly got a text from a random unsaved number. The text just read, "Are you not cold in those thin clothes?" Alright, that's terrifying. They begin to look around the bus immediately to try and see if they could spot who the heck just sent them this message. Hopefully it was someone that they knew just playing around, but unfortunately they couldn't see anyone that they knew. To make matters even worse, after this they got another text that read, "Stop looking, you're not going to find me." Turns out that this is one story that they did get to the bottom of. A few years later, once they had moved out of the apartment that they were living in at the time, they received a message from this same stranger confessing to the creepy messages. It turned out to be a random neighbor that had lived in the building along with them before they moved out. I'm not gonna lie, that doesn't make it seem any less creepy in my eyes.
And last up today in our number 1 spot is the ex-girlfriend. This story comes from a now deleted Reddit account and might just be one of the creepiest things I've ever read. The user said he got a message request from someone he didn't recognize, but accepted it thinking it may have been from one of the volunteer groups that he was a part of. The message explained he was his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend and that the Reddit user had broken her heart. He was shocked to get such a random text and essentially just explained that they hadn't had a healthy relationship and to please leave him alone. The new boyfriend started insulting him and his manhood, saying maybe she wouldn't have cheated if he had known how to treat her right. The Reddit user asked him what he wanted, to which he replied, "She wants you to die." He then sent screenshots where she went into brutal detail about wanting him to kidnap her ex-boyfriend and slowly saw off his, well, you know, before pinning him up to the wall by his shoulders and whipping him until his skin was ribbons. Lastly, while he hung there in pain, he was to slice off parts of his body, cook them, and then force feed them to him. And it wasn't just an empty threat. She offered her boyfriend $100 to get the job done and provided him with Reddit users' full name, address, parents' work schedules, and sisters' work schedules. Thankfully, it was reported to the police, and both the ex-girlfriend and her almost assassin boyfriend went to jail for the crimes, and Reddit user got a hefty restraining order.
Alright guys, that's all the dark text messages with disturbing backstories we have for you today. Have you ever received a creepy text that sent shivers down your spine?
If you have, make sure you leave a comment below and let us know.
I've been one of your hosts today, Olivia Kozlowski.
And I'm Kennedy. Thanks so much for watching, guys.
Bye.